Hello everyone. I hope you find what I've got to say to be entertaining and interesting for you. This memory was brought back because a month or so ago I was watching a film called, a black and white film, Colonel Blimp. And the Colonel, the actor who took the Colonel, reminded me so much of my only experience of the army. In the film, the Colonel has a long drooping walrus moustache, which is what reminded me of the Colonel that I'd at once been interviewed by. Well, to start at the beginning, in 1947 I was 18 and I had to go for my medical examination for national service and applied for the army. At the time I was working at the National Provincial Bank in York. Been there for 2 years and was very happy and making, I hope, good progress in my working career. Well, of course, I was very disappointed when I got the result of the medical examination that I'd been turned down and was grade 4. The form said you could appeal so against the decision, so I appealed and had to go to the barracks in York for the appeals interview, which probably was the Fulford barracks, I think. I just can't quite remember now, but anyhow, when I got there were 3 or 4 of us sat in this room and double doors opposite us with drill hole above them, and eventually 2 soldiers came and shouted "Shelton." I stood up, one either side of me. They marched me through these double doors down the length of the drill hall, where there was a table with this colonel and 4 more officers, 2 on either side of him, sat. They were the appeal tribunal, more like a court-martial really. The way these soldiers marched me down the room, all smart and saluting, and eventually when we got there, they both stamped their feet and saluted and shouted out, "Shelton, sir." They stood to one side while I was left facing the colonel. And he said, "What's all this? What's all this? Why have you appealed?" I said, "Well, my father was in the army during the war and saw quite a bit of Europe, obviously, and I thought it would be rather nice to have a break from banking and follow in my father's footsteps, as it were, and see a bit of the world by coming into the army." So the colonel harumphed again and growled and looked fierce, and he said, "Well, the position is this. At the moment we're at peace and we're only taking grade 1 man," bang his fist on the desk. "If war comes we shall take grade 2 men. If things go badly for us we shall take grade 3 men," another thump on the table. "But God help the British Empire if we ever have to take you. Good day, sir." Another thump, and the 2 soldiers came, stood either side of me, saluted the colonel, wheeled me round, marched me out, not just out of the drill hall, but out of the camp, and dumped me outside of the gate. So as you can imagine, that was a shock to me, really. And then my dad used to say, "Well, if one door closes against you, another one shuts in your face." And that turned out to be true, because when I got back to the bank and told the manager that I'd been turned down and they wouldn't have me under any circumstances, he told me I would have to leave. So that was the second shock in my young life. First of all, to be grade 4 for the army, then told to leave what was a prestige job in those days for a council estate boy like me, and to have to leave the bank was absolutely shattering for me. The reason that was given was that there were still men coming out of the army that the bank had promised to keep their positions open for them when they were demobilised. And because of that, they weren't appointing permanent staff. And until new entrants were 25 years old, which meant I had 7 years to go before I could become permanent. And not only that, but it was run, I think, with the Scottish Widows or the Scottish Life Association. I just don't remember that exactly. But one of the Scottish insurance companies, it was a non-contributory scheme, and the bank insisted on entrance to the pension scheme being first-class lives. And the bank said, well, you're not a first-class life now, and we can't see how you're going to be a first-class life in 7 years' time. So we think it better that you get established in another career rather than stay with us, where you might end up as basically a junior clerk for the rest of your life. Well, to be fair to the bank, they were very fair to me. They didn't sack me. They told me to apply. I was travelling from Leeds to York every day, which was very time consuming, of course, and particularly as we worked Saturday mornings and never left the bank until late at night, until everything had balanced. And so I applied for various jobs that I saw advertised, and fancied one with the Bradford Equitable Building Society in Albion Place in Leeds. And Mr. Langdale, the manager, interviewed me for at least twice, and I still hadn't heard that whether he was going to accept me or decline me. And one day Mr. Reynolds, the manager of the bank, called me in and asked me how I was doing with the interviews, and I told him I fancied this job at the Building Society in Leeds, and that I said that the manager seems to be a bit of a ditherer. He doesn't seem as if he can make up his mind. So I said, if you give me tomorrow off, I'll go and see whether I can bring matters to a head. So next day I bowled down. The office was a basement office. The steps went outside into what had been a cellar of a big house, and had been made into office. Well, the whole block was made into offices, of course. And so I went down, and Mr. Langdale was stood behind the counter when I walked in. He looked a bit startled to see me, but he said, I've been thinking about you. I said, I just thought I'd call in and see if you're going to offer me this post or not. Oh dear, when I think back, how on earth did I have the nerve or the arrogance, you know. Anyway, he said, come into the office, and we went in the office, and after a bit of discussion, he says, can you start on Monday? So I said, yes, thank you very much. Went back and told Mr. Reynolds, the manager of the bank in York, and he said, yeah, well, jolly good, you know, we're sure you're looking in the future. And he released me from my position at the bank, and I was able to start a few days later at the Building Society in Leeds. Maybe I might tell you one or two things that happened there in the next video, and in the meantime, thank you very much for watching.